Patricia was 54 years old when she opened her bank statement on a Sunday morning and realized she had worked every single day of the previous month and still had less than $40 left before her next paycheck. She sat at her kitchen table with the paper in her hands and she read the numbers 3 times, slowly, the way you reread a sentence when the meaning refuses to land. She had not bought anything extravagant. She had not gone on a trip or bought new furniture or done anything she could point to and say, that was where it went. The money had simply disappeared, quietly. In the ordinary way that money disappears from a woman who has spent 40 years putting everyone else first. She put the statement face down on the table so she didn't have to look at it anymore. She picked up her coffee cup, the cracked one with the yellow sunflower on the side that she had been meaning to replace for 2 years. She held it with both hands. She drank her coffee. She looked out the window at the gray October morning and she thought about how she had been working since she was 15 years old and she had almost nothing to show for it that she could hold in her hands. What Patricia did not know yet, sitting at that table in her housecoat and her slippers, was that her money wasn't gone. Not all of it. It was hidden. She had been hiding it from herself in 5 different ways, and she hadn't known about a single one of them. By the time this story reaches its end, you will recognize at least 3 of those hiding places in your own life. Maybe all 5. And if you do, that recognition alone could be worth more than anything you've saved in the last decade. Patricia Ann Moore had been a home health aide for 19 years. She drove to other people's houses 6 days a week, sometimes 7 when someone called in sick and the agency needed coverage, and she helped women who could no longer help themselves do the things that most of us do without thinking. She helped them bathe. She helped them get dressed. She reminded them to take their medication and sat with them while they ate their lunch because some of them had nobody else to eat with. She held their hands when they were frightened, and she listened to their stories about husbands who had been dead for 20 years and grandchildren who called only at Christmas. Patricia was good at her work in the way that only certain people are good at certain things, the way that comes not from training but from somewhere deeper. She had a quality of presence that her patients felt before she even spoke. They settled when she walked into the room. One of them, a woman of 87 named Mrs. Carol, who had not spoken a full sentence in months, had told Patricia's supervisor that Patricia smelled like something good. What she smelled like was lavender. Patricia kept a small bar of lavender soap in the chest pocket of her scrubs every single day, not for any particular reason except that she had started doing it years ago when one of her patients had said it calmed her down, and she had never stopped. The soap wore down to a sliver by Friday, and she replaced it Monday morning without fail. 19 years. Hundreds of bars of soap. That detail alone tells you everything about the kind of woman Patricia was. She was 54, 5'2", with natural gray coming in at both temples that she had stopped fighting 2 years ago and had started, slowly and tentatively, to like. She lived alone in a 2-bedroom rental in a quiet part of the city, the 2nd bedroom kept tidy for when her daughter visited from Atlanta, which was 3 times a year if they were lucky. She had a small yard she kept neat, a vegetable garden in the summer that she was immensely proud of, and a cat named Bernard who was old and fat and opinionated and was the only creature in Patricia's life who demanded nothing of her in the way of emotional labor. Tucked in the back of Patricia's linen closet, behind the spare towels she kept for guests, was a small metal tin. The tin had once held holiday cookies. It was red with white snowflakes painted on the lid, and Patricia had kept it for so long she had stopped seeing it. Inside the tin, wrapped in a piece of wax paper, was a recipe card in her late Aunt Gloria's handwriting. Peach cobbler, the best one Patricia had ever tasted in her life. The smell of it tied to every good summer memory she had. And underneath the recipe card, folded twice and slightly soft at the creases from years of existing in that tin, was a $20 bill. She had put it there 15 years ago. She called it, in her own mind, her starting over money. Not that she had a plan, not that she knew what she was starting over from or toward. She had just needed to know it was there. That somewhere in the house there was $20 that belonged only to her, that no one needed, that no emergency had claimed. That $20 was a promise she had made to herself and never quite kept. It was the smallest, quietest dream she had ever had, and she had been keeping it safe in a cookie tin behind the spare towels for 15 years. If this is your first time in this space, and something in Patricia's story is already finding you, then welcome. This channel was made for women like her, women like you. Stay. The collapse, when it came, arrived the way collapses always arrive for women like Patricia. Not in one loud moment, but in a slow accumulation of small leaks that suddenly became a flood all at once. It started in the spring. Patricia's car needed new brake pads. $840, which she did not have in savings, because there were no savings. There was only the checking account and the careful rationing of what came in each week. She put the brake pads on her credit card, which she had been paying off for years and which had finally, after enormous effort, gotten down to a manageable balance. The $840 put it back up. She told herself she would pay it off by summer. Summer came and her daughter needed help with first and last month's rent on a new apartment after a breakup. Patricia sent $300 without hesitating. She would have sent more if she'd had it. She sent it because that is what mothers do, and she did not resent it. She never resented helping her daughter, but the $300 went straight to the card, and the card did not come down. Then in August, the dentist found 2 cavities. The insurance covered part of it. Patricia paid $320 out of pocket for the rest, and she charged it. Because what else do? You cannot walk around with cavities. You cannot let your teeth go just because the timing is inconvenient. By September, the credit card was back up to $2,960. Not where it had started, but close. And the minimum payment was eating $68 a month that she did not have room for. The moment that broke something open inside her happened on a Wednesday afternoon at the pharmacy. Patricia had stopped to pick up her blood pressure medication after a long shift. She had been on her feet since 7 in the morning. She was tired in the particular way you get tired when you have spent 9 hours caring for another person's body, a deep cellular tiredness that coffee does not touch. She handed the pharmacist her insurance card and then her debit card for the copay, which was usually $12. The card was declined. She stood at the counter and felt the color come into her face. The pharmacist, a young man who was genuinely kind about it, said it quietly. He said sometimes the system glitched. She said yes, sometimes it did. She opened her wallet. She had $11 in cash and a crumpled receipt from the gas station. The medication was $12. The woman behind her in line, a stranger, said without drama or fanfare, "I have it, honey, don't worry." She held out a card before Patricia could respond. Patricia wanted to refuse. She opened her mouth to say no. The words did not come out. She stood there for 2 full seconds that felt like a very long time, and then she said thank you, very quietly, and the woman paid the $12 and Patricia took her bag and walked to her car and sat in the driver's seat for a while without starting the engine. She was not angry at herself. Something worse than anger was present. She was bewildered. She had worked every day of the previous month. She had not bought anything she would call a luxury. She had been careful. She thought she had been careful, and still she had stood at a pharmacy counter, unable to pay $12 for her own blood pressure medication. She drove home. She sat at the kitchen table with her planner open in front of her. In the margin of the September page, she found something she had written months ago in small letters that she had forgotten about. 2 words, 1 day. She stared at those 2 words for a long time. Patricia had a routine on Sunday mornings. She took her laundry to the laundromat 3 blocks away because the machines in her building were unreliable and overpriced. And she liked the laundromat because it was warm and it smelled like dryer sheets, and no one expected anything from her there. She brought a book and a coffee from the gas station, and she sat and read for the hour and a half it took, and it was the closest thing she had to a morning to herself. The Sunday after the pharmacy, she went to the laundromat as usual. She loaded her machine. She sat down in the plastic chair by the window with her book open on her lap. She did not read a single word of it. Sei tu comentou, sei tu comentou agora em 3G. That book must be sad. Patricia looked up. The woman was older, maybe 75, with deep brown skin and hair the color of a storm cloud, natural and close-cropped. She was small, smaller than Patricia, and she was knitting something green without looking at her hands. The needles moving the way hands move when they have done a thing 10,000 times. She had the particular ease of a woman who had decided, somewhere along the way, that she had earned the right to say exactly what she observed. Patricia said the book was fine. She said she was just thinking. The woman said she could see that. She said Patricia had the look of somebody counting. Patricia laughed a little at that, because it was accurate. She said she supposed she was counting. She said she couldn't figure out where her money kept going, that she worked all the time and somehow she still came up short and she didn't understand it. The woman was quiet for a moment. Her knitting needles kept their rhythm. A dryer tumbled. Outside the window a dog went by on a leash, pulling hard, going somewhere with great urgency the way dogs always do. Then the woman said, and she said it without looking up from her knitting, without making it into a lesson or a speech. She said it the way you say something you have known for years, and it has become simply true. Sugar, money doesn't hide from you, you hide from money. Patricia felt that sentence land somewhere below her ribs. The woman's name was Miss Ernestine, and she had been widowed for 12 years and had 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren and had worked as a school cook for 31 years before retiring on a pension that was not large but that she knew down to the last dollar. She said she used to hide from money too, the way most women did, the way she believed was actually taught to them, to look away from the numbers, to let the men handle it, or if there were no men then to just manage and not look too closely, because looking too closely hurt. She said she had not understood until she was in her 60s that the looking away was exactly the thing costing her. She did not give Patricia a plan or a book recommendation or a list of steps. She just sat there knitting her green thing and told a story, and Patricia sat beside her and listened. And when the machines buzzed and they both stood to move their laundry to the dryers, the conversation ended as naturally as it had begun. Patricia drove home with her clean laundry in the back seat, and Miss Ernestine's sentence sitting in her chest, quiet and insistent. Money doesn't hide from you, you hide from money. Patricia went home that Sunday, and she sat at the kitchen table with her bank statements from the last 3 months spread out in front of her. Not the summary, the actual line-by-line records. Every transaction. She got a yellow highlighter and a pen and a fresh piece of paper, and she looked at everything, every single line, and she did not look away from any of it. What she found was not what she expected. She had expected to find something dramatic, some obvious mistake, some single culprit she could identify and eliminate. What she found instead were dozens of small things, quiet and unremarkable individually, invisible in their accumulation. The first hiding place revealed itself within the first 10 minutes. She had been paying for things she had forgotten she was paying for. A storage unit she rented 3 years ago to hold furniture from her mother's house after her mother passed, furniture she had not looked at since the first month and had no plan for. $87 a month for 3 years was over $3,000 she had spent on a room full of grief she had not processed. She had not thought of it as spending. She had thought of it as a thing she paid, the way you think of rent, the way you stop questioning the fixed costs, because questioning them requires looking at them. She had been hiding from that $87. She had not looked directly at it in 36 months. The second hiding place was harder to see because it lived inside her kindness. Patricia gave money away constantly, and she gave it without tracking it. Her daughter, yes, but also the collection at church, and her neighbor's grandchild's fundraiser, and the co-worker whose car broke down, and the cousin who asked by text, and whom Patricia could never say no to. Not large amounts, never large amounts, but 30 here and 20 there, and 50 the one-time things were particularly bad for the cousin. And when she added it up across 3 months, she found she had given away more than $460 that she had not recorded anywhere, that had never appeared in any mental budget she had made, because she had never allowed herself to see her own generosity as a financial act. She was not going to stop being generous, but she was going to start counting what she gave, because invisible generosity drains the same as any other invisible spending. And a woman cannot give from a well that she is pretending isn't running low. The third hiding place was where Miss Ernestine's sentence became most clear. Patricia had not raised her rates in 4 years. As a home health aide who took private clients on weekends in addition to her agency work, she set her own rate for those hours, and she had not raised it since the year she turned 50 because she had told herself her clients were on fixed incomes and she didn't want to burden them. What she had not allowed herself to see was that she was on a fixed income too. She was working weekend hours at a rate she had set in a different economy, a different inflation, a different version of the world. She had been hiding from the number of what her time was actually worth. She started looking directly at it. And here is where the loop that began on the first night finally closes, because the way Patricia found the fourth hiding place was the strangest and most important discovery of all. She had been keeping an emergency fund. Sort of. She had a savings account that she put $40 into most months. Sometimes less, sometimes skipping it entirely when things were tight. In 3 years, she had accumulated just over $900 in that account. But the account was earning almost no interest, sitting in a standard savings at a bank that had not updated its rates in years. In the same 3 years, the credit card she was paying minimums on had been accumulating interest at a rate of over 21% annually. She was saving $40 a month and paying the bank far more than that in interest on the card. The math was backward. She had been hiding from the math because looking at the math required admitting that the thing she thought was helping her was actually holding her in place. The fifth hiding place was the one that cost her the most and had no number attached to it at all. It was the time she spent managing the anxiety of not knowing, the hours spent calculating in her head, the nights she woke at 3 in the morning running numbers that never quite resolved, the energy she spent worrying around the edges of her finances without ever going to the center of them. All of that was a cost. It was paid in sleep and focus and peace, and it was being charged against her continuously whether she looked at the statements or not. The hiding from money was not protecting her from the pain of the numbers. It was just making her pay the pain in a different currency. 8 months. That is the span of time between the Sunday afternoon at the pharmacy and the Sunday morning when Patricia sat at the same kitchen table with the same cracked coffee cup and looked at a bank statement that told a different story. She had not become a different person. She had not made more money in any dramatic sense. She had made small changes that accumulated the way small things accumulate when you stop looking away from them. The storage unit was the first thing she closed. She spent one hard Saturday going through her mother's furniture with her daughter, who drove up from Atlanta for the weekend. They kept the rocking chair and the quilt her mother had made by hand and the small lamp with the blue shade that had been in her mother's bedroom for 30 years. They donated the rest. Patricia cried twice. Her daughter held her hand both times. The storage unit was cleared and closed by the end of the day, and $87 a month came back to Patricia like a quiet apology. She raised her private rate by $6 an hour. She had been prepared for resistance and there was almost none. One client adjusted without comment. The other said it was long overdue. Patricia sat in her car after that second conversation and felt something in her chest that took her a moment to identify. It was not relief exactly. It was self-respect, arriving quietly after a long absence. She moved the credit card balance to a lower interest option and stopped putting anything new on it. She changed her savings approach entirely, redirecting the card savings toward the card balance first until it was eliminated, then rebuilding the savings with a clear monthly number she tracked and looked at directly, every week, without flinching. She started writing down everything she gave. Not to stop giving, she never stopped. She gave to her church, and to her daughter, and to the neighbor's grandchild, and even once more to the cousin. But she counted it. She looked at it. She called it what it was, a line in her budget named giving, and she gave within that line and felt, for the first time, that her generosity was a choice she was making clearly rather than a leak she could not locate. The third month was the hardest. She had to choose between fixing a minor electrical problem in her car or paying the credit card down by the amount she had planned. She sat with the discomfort of that choice for a long time. She did not reach for the card. She called 2 different mechanics and got 2 different estimates and chose the one who would take a payment split across 2 weeks. She made the payment plan and she kept it. She looked at the car bill directly and made a plan for it, and executed the plan, and the card still went down that month, just by less than she had wanted. Less is not nothing. Less is still direction. And then, in May, in the 8th month, something happened that she had not planned for. A private client she had been seeing for 2 years passed away. Patricia had known it was coming. She had sat with that woman through many difficult weeks. She went to the small funeral. She sent a card. And 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived in the mail from the woman's daughter. Inside was a check for $250 and a note that said her mother had asked her to send it, that Patricia had been the most consistent kindness in the last years of her life. Patricia sat at the kitchen table with the check and the note, and she cried, the slow kind of crying that has no emergency in it, just the weight of being seen. She deposited the check. She put it directly toward the last remaining balance on the credit card. The card hit zero on a Tuesday afternoon, and Patricia was at work when she got the notification on her phone, and she stepped outside to the parking lot for 3 minutes and stood in the spring air and breathed. Then she went back inside and finished her shift. It was a Sunday in October, a year almost to the week from the morning she had turned the bank statement face down rather than look at it, and Patricia was at the laundromat. She had her book. She had her coffee. She sat in the plastic chair by the window the same as always. And next to her, after a while, sat a woman she did not recognize, younger by maybe 10 or 15 years, with the particular kind of tired that does not come from a bad night, but from a long time. The woman put her laundry in and came and sat down and stared at her phone for a while, and then put the phone in her bag and stared at the wall. After a few minutes she said, to no one in particular, I work so much. I genuinely do not understand where it all goes. Patricia looked over at her. The woman looked at Patricia and seemed slightly embarrassed, the way you are when you realize you've spoken a private thought out loud. She said sorry. She said she was just tired. Patricia said there was nothing to be sorry for. She thought for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and she took out the small red tin with the white snowflakes on the lid. She held it in her hands for a moment. Then she opened it. She unfolded the recipe card in Aunt Gloria's handwriting and she set it aside carefully. She took out the $20 bill, the one she had kept for 15 years, soft at the creases, still whole. She looked at it for a moment. She thought about the woman she had been when she put it in the tin, the particular quality of that hope, private and stubborn, and a little bit ashamed of itself, the dream of starting over that had no shape yet. She refolded the 20 and she placed it in the younger woman's hand. The woman looked startled. She said she couldn't take that. Patricia said it was not a gift. She said it was a starting point. She said, put it somewhere you won't spend it, somewhere you can always find it. And the next time you feel like you can't make sense of the numbers, take it out and look at it and remember you already made a decision to start. The woman looked at the $20 in her palm. She looked at Patricia. She said quietly, how do you even begin? Patricia thought about Miss Ernestine and her green knitting and the sentence that had arrived without ceremony and changed everything. The money isn't hiding from you, she said. You've been hiding from the money. That's the only place to start. You stop looking away. The woman sat with that. The machines turned. Outside, the October light was coming through the window at the long late afternoon angle that makes everything look like it is being remembered rather than experienced. Patricia looked down at the open tin in her lap. The recipe card was still there. Aunt Gloria's handwriting. Peach cobbler, the kind that smelled like every good summer. She had the recipe. She had always had the recipe. She did not need to keep it in a tin as proof that good things were possible. She knew that now from the inside, not from a folded piece of paper tucked behind spare towels. She had been wearing, without thinking about it, her old gray cardigan, the one with a small coffee stain on the left cuff, from a morning 2 winters ago, when everything had been harder than it was now. She noticed the stain and she thought briefly that she should have replaced the cardigan by now. Then she thought she didn't need to replace it. It was comfortable and it was hers and it had been with her through the worst of it. Some things you keep not because they are perfect, but because they have been present. The bus came and went outside. Two children passed the window arguing about something important, in the way that only children's arguments are important. The machines hummed. If something in Patricia's story found you today, if you recognized yourself in the hiding, in the not looking, in the working hard and still coming up short and not being able to explain it, then I want you to do one thing before you close this video. Come down to the comments right now and write, Day 1. And then tell me one place you have been hiding from money. Just one. It might be a subscription you stopped questioning. It might be your own hourly rate. It might be the kindness you give that you have never once counted. Write it down here. Say it out loud. Name the hiding place. I read every single comment that comes in, and I will read yours. If you have a woman in your life, a sister, a friend, a co-worker, a daughter, someone who is working hard and coming up short and cannot figure out why, please share this video with her today, not later, today. She needs to hear Patricia's story. And if this channel is new to you, welcome. This is a place built by women, for exactly the kind of conversation we don't always get to have out loud. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and come back. There are more stories here, more women like Patricia, more proof that the only thing standing between you and the numbers is the decision to look directly at them. Thank you for being here. Take good care of yourself this week. You are worth looking at, every part of you, including the parts that have to do with money. Come back soon.